time. I want to introduce you to our guest speaker. This is Thom Whalen. He is from EA Maxis, which is electronic arts under the Maxis label out in Redwood City, California. He's originally from New Britain, Connecticut, graduated New Britain High, and is currently working on the Sims franchise. Mr. Whalen has 7 years in the video game design industry, so I hope you guys have a lot of questions for him when he's going to with this presentation. Before we get started, how many of you guys actually play video games? Raise your hands. What are some of your favorite video games? What do you guys play? Call it out, yeah. What do you play?
Dragon Age.
Nice.
What else?
Mine,
Has anyone played Sims before? Yeah?
One in the back. One in the back.
All right, so I'm going to give the floor to him, and here we go.
Hey everyone. So I'm just going to go a pretty quick presentation. I've been told to stretch it out. I'll keep it quick for you guys. I want to hear more of your questions and what you guys want to know. I'm pretty much just going to go through a bit of information about what's the industry, the roles, and a little bit about the culture and what you can expect in it. So a little bit about me. It's kind of already been said, but I work in the industry for about 7 years. I'm currently working at EA Maxis. And I've worked in everything from mobile games to the AAA titles. I've also done a board game, but it was for a convention, so you unfortunately won't be able to play that. Oh yeah, I had pictures. So these are a couple of games I've worked on, as well as the logos for EA and Maxis. I already said what I was going to go through, so I'll just go through this quick. The industry positions, what the industry is like, and how to get in. There's a lot of ways to do that. But for the most part, I think you guys all know the main 3 positions that everyone kind of talks about all the time. It's game design, programming, and artists. But really, in the industry, that kind of breaks down to a lot of different things. So artists there'll be technical artists, there'll be animators, modelers who will actually build the things you see in game. For designers, the technical designers, what I do, put everything together. UI, UX, it's kind of the HUD that appears when you guys play the game and what you mainly interact with. And then systems designs build the actual features, and narrative design doing the writing, the characters, and any type of story that the game is going to entail. I'm sure you guys recognize some of these and probably know none of them at all, but all these guys are, for the most part, are considered designers. So you don't have to have the title of game designer to be able to build a great game. You just have to know some of the ways to build it. Like if you're an artist, get a programmer to help you build what you want to do. If you're a programmer, get an artist, because I have a programming background and I can't do art. I just have squares running around my screen. But there's a lot of different positions you can get into. So there's quality assurance, there's production, there's community management, just reaching out to the fans of your game. There's also marketing, legal. Yeah, if you like law, you can still get into games. You can help us out. Basically, we can ask you questions like, can we throw this into the game? No, that's copyrighted. Crap. And then the last one is Let's Players, but we don't call them that. We call them key influencers, partially because not only do these guys help us out in marketing our game, but also they get into our fan base and they get more people involved in community events and stuff like that. So they kind of really help us out. Basically the industry is varied greatly. So you could have the really laid-back culture where there's gaming murals everywhere, or you can have more of a corporate culture. EA is kind of in the middle, which is interesting. You can also have really laid-back office hours, like work for yourself, work from home, or you could be working 60 hours a week because you have to come in because there's crunching. This doesn't happen as much, luckily, anymore, but if you're in the social space, it kind of does. So a couple ways to get into the industry if you're interested. You can get a quality assurance position. This is kind of working as a bug tester for the game, helping us find issues before the players do. That doesn't always work out, but it's fun to, it's a great job to get into the industry with. You can also get an associate position. This is like a base level job for a programmer, an artist, or a designer. You tend to do the minor things to work on, but you can get it into a major position afterwards. And the last one is internships. So if you're in college, you can apply for an internship position that will get you some experience into the role you're interested in for the company. The other way is networking. Meet some devs at a convention, or talk to me afterwards. Staying up to date with people that are in the industry helps you get in. It's a small space. So someone that you've met is probably going to be able to help you get in, because they'll have worked at several different companies, and they might have other contacts to help you out. Last is release your own game. Work on something. If you've worked in Unity or Game Maker, release it to a Steam's Greenlight, which is now gone, unfortunately. But like release it on Steam or go to an indie website and try to get it out there for yourself. It builds your recognition. It also lets people know what your skill base is. And last, there's a lot of other ways, but you can be part of a games community and talk with the devs or talk with their community manager. That'll help you get into a position at the company. Or you can, get good and play an esport and get really popular and have a YouTube streaming community. Any questions so far, by the way, before I continue? No? All right. But you've got questions for me from your own slides. So, as a high schooler, what did I really want to be before I got into designing for games? Well, as a kid, I wanted to be a doctor or an actor, and I realized I'm not good at that. So I next wanted, in middle school, wanted to be a writer. But during this entire time, I was also like picking up games. Like I'd see a game at the store, and I wasn't allowed to buy them all the time because I didn't have the money for it. So I'd be like, I see this picture of a giant mech. I'm going to make that game for myself, and I'm going to play it. And they never turned out great, but at least it got me into like how do games actually get built. How long does it usually take to make a video game? Interestingly enough, it can take 24 hours, which is usually a game jam game. Most games will take about 2 to 5 years to build. Majority of them will take there, but MMOs take about 10. And then there's the 15-year games. Yeah, Duke Nukem Forever. So what do I do as a technical designer? That's basically what I do all the time. I'm mostly working in spreadsheets and writing documentation, as well as scripting or data entry. It sounds boring, but you get to play the game a lot and see what you can add to it and add really interesting things. Like all of our tech designers add some type of Easter egg to The Sims. One of the ones I added, if you want to ever find it, is part of the hot tub. What's the most difficult part about designing? It's these two things, which are pretty much the flip side of the coin. There's scope, and then there's feature creep. Scope is basically, if you want to take a recipe and you want to make some type of awesome bread, but you're told you can only make it in 2 hours. You can't make bread in 2 hours, so you usually have to cut down the ingredients to be able to get it working. That's kind of what I have to do. I have to scope our game down to make it so that we can make it within some period of time. Usually it's the 2 to 5 year thing I mentioned before. Feature creep's the opposite. Feature creep is us adding features during development and not knowing when to stop that. It usually ends up where you'll see a half-finished feature in a game that might have been added because of something like this. What programs like Photoshop and Illustrator prepare you for the field of game design? So, Photoshop and Illustrator are great if you want to get into artistry, so like concept artist, or you're making a 2D game. It's perfect for like getting a head based into that. Also, learning those tools helps you learn the tools that are built for the industry. For Maxis, we have very proprietary tools that we build just for the company itself, and most companies have something like that. Some will release them like Bethesda or Valve. They'll release their tools to the player, but not everybody does that. But if you want to get into game design, Game Maker and Unity are probably some of the best ways. They give you a good framework to work with. If you're trying to get into art, Maya and Blender are good 3D tools, as well as I mentioned before for 2D, Photoshop and Illustrator. But if you want to build a game using all this stuff, I suggest Unreal. Because with that, you can build an asset, put it in the game, and start playing it right away. All right, let's go through a rapid fire round. You guys ready for this? Sounds like no, because everyone's quiet. All right, did I work on Madden? Nope. Do you work with the Madden series? Not directly. Anything that happens at the company, like at Maxis, if we're doing well, that'll affect Madden, but I don't work directly with them at all. Why do games cost so much money? You guys are going to hate this, but they should cost more. And there's a whole bunch of asterisks after that. So if you want to ask me questions about that, please do. Can you make games cheaper? Economics says no. Xbox One or PS4? PS4. Apple or Android? I'm going to get split. Who has Apple? Dan, you guys would hate me. I'm Android. I want to develop stuff. Apple won't let you do that. Do I play Call of Duty? How many Call of Duty fans? How many Rainbow Six Siege fans? They'll be happy. Rainbow Six Siege. Do I enjoy my job? I wouldn't be talking about it if I didn't. This is a great job. It's fun to do. And the last one, this is my favorite question you guys asked, by the way, is how do you deal with the recent backlash concerning loot boxes, microtransactions, and how does it affect you or Maxis? I love this question because I've been asked a variation of this 5 times, but this is the only one asking how I felt about it. But unfortunately, I can't talk about it. When you work for a big company, even outside of the game industry, they'll always have you sign a non-disclosure agreement. What this means is you can't talk about things that are happening in the business, and that kind of protects you from when something like this occurs, people can't start asking you about it and asking your opinion. It really helps the company too, but it more is protection for the employees. And it's kind of the reason why whenever something happens like the Bethesda paid mods or any other controversy like that, you don't hear anything from the employees because we can't talk about it. So I'm going to open the floor to you guys. Do you have any more questions you guys want to go through? No? Dark Souls guy.
By any chance, how do you not?
Yeah.
Have you, sorry. Did you ever work on Spore? I know it's a really big game.
No, Spore was developed before I got into the industry. But yeah, we've talked about Spore a lot at the company. It's kind of one of those things where you go, it happened, it was a thing. We always, like, it's always the talk of like, what are we going to do with that? Like, so, yeah.
I know you probably can't actually disclose a lot of it, but how much do you, like, around make a year?
So for what I make right now, I make around 70K. The industry average, depending on what you're in, is about 45 to 100K. But that depends on experience, tenure at a company usually, and the position you're in. So programmers tend to get paid a little bit more than designers. And then entry-level positions usually are paid a little bit less than someone who's been there for a couple years. Anything? Yeah.
Why do video games cost so much?
Okay, so who's taken an economics class? A couple, no one? Oh, damn. Okay, so basically $60 is where publishers have found they can set a price and people are still willing to buy it. If they go over that, the number of people who buys it drops dramatically. Also, the cost of development for a game, for any AAA title, is usually about $10 million. So to recoup that cost, they have to charge some amount of money that they know that they can get back. So a game at $60, it maybe only takes them about 200,000 copies to recoup what they've put in development, and then everything else after that is profit. But they're not always guaranteed to get that, which is why you don't see a lot of new IPs coming out, unfortunately. Does that answer your question? You want to maybe go a little bit more into detail? All right, cool. Anything else? Yeah.
Did you try to get into Maxis, or did you end up falling in there?
A little bit of both. So I actually applied at PopCap after they had been acquired by EA. And what happened was the position I applied for was removed just before I got hired. So they transferred me to Maxis, and Maxis picked up my resume. And I took that and turned it into a position at their company. So nothing always works out 100%, but it's awesome, like different ways to get in. Yeah?
Why are Ubisoft servers so bad?
Oh boy. I don't know 100% why their servers are so bad. All I can talk about is what goes on in the background. So I have a background in programming, so I kind of know what it takes to make networking work. And it's a pain. It's one of the hardest things you can do. It never works right, and you never know why. So part of the way you have to set it up is, it's called client to server, and an issue on the server may cause an issue to the client, but an issue on the client may not cause a problem to the server. And figuring out where a problem is happening takes weeks of debugging, which is like just going through and trying to find out what's actually causing the issue. Yeah.
If you play a Ubisoft game and the servers don't work, was there ever a game?
Oh, wow. Yes, I guess. You could probably make the server yourself if you knew what you were doing. Unfortunately, I don't know too much about what goes along with their servers. I'm betting they don't still set up enough of them, so they have too low of a capacity for the number of people playing, so the servers just overload and just break down all the time. Yeah.
Those who are into video games, what is this Ubisoft's concept that they're all talking about?
Ubisoft is another publisher. So the big three are EA, Ubisoft, and Activision.
Okay.
And Ubisoft tends to have problems with their servers. The thing is, everyone kind of forgets that so does everyone else. It's just like EA, their servers, they've made so many multiplayer games with servers, they kind of have that down. Whereas Ubisoft is just starting to get used to making network games. And then Blizzard has had issues in the past for Activision, but everyone kind of forgives them for it. Sure.
How many hours would you say you end up putting into games out of work, and then how many hours you put in at work?
Playing games or making them?
Both, I guess.
Okay. So at work, I'll probably play a game at my lunch hour, and at home, if I'm not working on a project myself, probably the entire night is spent on some type of video game, either researching it or playing it for fun, like Rainbow Six Siege. So I'd probably say maybe each week about 40, and then for work, I'm also spending 40. I don't work for the companies anymore that have crunch hours, which means you're working like 60, 80 hours a week. Thank God. Those companies are actually kind of weaning off of that. They have better strategies now about how to develop games. But at home, I'll work on my own projects, maybe like 2 hours a day, just to get to work on something and like get an idea or a prototype ready to show friends. Sure. Go ahead.
What's your win-loss and rank in Siege?
Oh God, my win-loss. So I don't play enough ranked in Siege to know that. I think it's probably 1-to-1. I tend to play with friends and mess around as much as possible. So we'll have rounds where it's like, hey, want to see what happens when I do something with Twitch and then he kills my drone? We start doing stuff like that. So I don't know it off the top of my head, unfortunately. One behind you.
Is there such thing as a good caviar man?
Yeah.
Good caviar. Okay, I've seen one. He got 3 kills he got 3 interrogations in a round. He basically let them all live. He just wanted to try to get 5. He died on the 4th one. So.
On the slide you had with all the different careers that lead into video games, could you go back over that?
Yeah.
And just talk about, what classes they should maybe take to get into those areas, or even talk about your experience, like where you went to school, how you got into the industry. What's that like when you're out of college, you got to find a job? How does that grow? Because I've not been there before, and it's just interesting.
Okay. So I went to Full Sail University in Florida. And when I got out, the industry was kind of in a slump because that was the time when the economy kind of went down. So to get in, it was more about standing out than anything else. And now it's a little bit easier now because there's more positions open, there's more opportunities. There's also, the indie scene has been popping up and causing a lot of, it generates a lot of jobs within the industry because they're just like, make one game, build it, then everyone goes back to freelancing. But what I took is I specialized in programming. So I was learning physics, linear algebra, and programming in C++ and C#. And this kind of gave me the base to start working in, there would be gameplay and graphics. Both of those are like very technically heavy, and they require like a lot of like extra time learning like scripting languages like Java, HTML, and Python. But once you know one programming language, it's really easy to pick up the rest because they all have the general same base. It's just knowing the nuances of each. It's kind of like picking up French or Spanish. So,
is it harder to make a game or make tools to make the game? Like making a game in Unity or making Unity?
Making the tools is much harder. Because so the interesting thing is with the game itself, you can program it and make it do the exact thing you want. When you're building a tool, you have to figure out what the player is going to use that tool for. So if you give a tool that says, all right, this character moves based on input, well, what input? So is it controller based? Is it keyboard based? Is it motion sensors? Basically, you have to be able to support all of that, because you never know what they're going to use it for. And to make a good tool, you want to support as many things as possible. Yeah.
So aside from digital arts and design, we offer a lot of other kinds of classes here. Things like drawing, sculpture, Can you give any insight into how knowledge in those areas might help students maybe if they're looking to get into more of the artistic side?
Yeah, so drawing is also really useful for artists because it lets us see, like designers or anyone who's working on a game, see your idea before you start building it, and allows you to get feedback before anything is built, or you you spend time on an asset that may not actually go in the game. If we know what it's going to look like, we might just say, that's awesome, that has to go in, and we'll make time to make sure it goes in. For modeling, that helps you, it can help you in the 3D space. What it's really useful for is a lot of companies now will start building models of their characters ahead of time, something that they can be used as reference for the modeler or the animator later on. Basically almost anything you learn in art can be applied in the gaming space. We kind of throw everything to the wall. When it comes to art, we like trying, like any game can try everything. So there's a lot of different art styles. Like there's a game that uses M.C. Escher as a medium, and like all of his artwork is pulled in as game levels and the art direction and stuff like that. There's games that use Jackson Pollock. I don't know if you guys know who that is. He's the splatter artist. There's like everything can be used. So anything you learn from art, it's a great tool to pull for. Also, game design is kind of, you need to know like a bit of everything. The more life experience you have, the more things you've studied, the better it prepares you for game design, because you never know what you're going to be building. I'm building a life right now, so just using things in my general life or knowing things that people are interested in helps me figure out what should go next into the game. Sure.
I'm probably asking too many questions.
No, hey, it's all good.
So I was actually working in Unity over the holiday, actually, trying to bring the model to work in a game.
Okay.
The only problem is when I'm actually doing like the bones, like this bones like always like go all over the place for some reason, don't like build off the humanoid model. And it's when I do actually like assign the correct bones to like upper chest, left arm, fingers, and all that sort of stuff, it says it's not in a T-pose. And when I try to put it in T-pose, it still doesn't work. How would you fix that sort of thing?
Unfortunately, I don't know too much about Unity programming. So it sounds like there's an issue with the rig. You may not have a root node. And that's basically the node where the model is built off of. It basically is usually at the model's feet, and then when they're T-posed, it's determining the position of every one of the joints based on where that node is. It's kind of like a starting point for everything in the model. So.
In our art classes, no matter what medium they're working in, we go through a concept development phase. We have to sketch out their ideas and give compositional sketches. Like, tell us the story of, like, you're making a brand new game, you have storyboarding and discussions. Like, what's the process of start to completion in that 2 to 5 year arc that you guys go through?
So it usually starts with just a couple designers and programmers working just to get the main features prototyped and the main concepts like playable to somebody. Once we have that down, we'll pull in an art director who will then try to build the style guide for the game. That's basically how everything looks, how the environments get textured, what types of shaders do the players or the engineers need to build to be able to show the player the world. Trying to think, what was the other part of
Let's say you're making a brand new game, or concept about brand new, it's not even like Sims, it's something brand new.
Yeah.
Like, how do designers get that idea? How do they pull it together? Are there conversations? What does storyboarding look like? You know, maybe we have a lot of kids in either digital art or pottery, but like, you know, maybe in drawing, is there storyboarding an illustration? Or my question, I guess we have a lot of pottery students. Do you do any like 3D actual models in clay before you go to the computer? I've seen that in videos on TV and stuff.
So that depends on the company more than anything else. So most games start off as a pitch. They'll start off as some presentation like the one I gave you guys, and they'll go through with anyone who's a stakeholder of it and start giving the idea to everybody. Once the game is approved and they start the prototyping stuff like I talked about, when they get the art director in, it's up to the art director to kind of decide what they need to do to get that game from nothing to the art. So something like Overwatch started with, well, how's the game going to look? And then they started building character profiles to see how the characters would be animated. So they chose like a Pixar style animation. Once they have that down and they have a couple characters they're really happy with, Blizzard usually takes the character they're most happy with, in this case is Tracer, and builds tons of models of them, kind of to get them out there, kind of to get this, for people to see what they're working on. Other companies might model out their creatures, if anything, or some of their model sets, and this is usually done for later in development. Once the game is launched, those tend to be the pre-order things, the statues they hand out, because they're trying to get a feel for what the game's going to look like.
And when you say Tracer, is that a program you're using to make this?
No, that's a character.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm sure there's other people who don't know the lingo either.
Yeah, the 3D, like actual physical 3D models aren't always done. Those tend to be done by like games that have 5 years of development, because they're able to spend more time like researching what they want to do. Most games will start immediately going to 3D modeling if it's 3D, or start using 2D assets as soon as they can. Yeah.
How does it actually use a switch from a humanoid figure to like a, not like just a figure, but in a game, like a rook to a caribou or something?
As long as you use the same rig, do you know what that is or no? Like the same skeleton? Yeah. As long as everyone's using the same skeleton, it's pretty simple to switch between models. It's when you change from like a biped to a quadruped. That means a whole new model has to be built. Or if the size difference is so great that, like in Sims 4, the toddlers, the reason why we didn't have them in base game is because we couldn't build a rig. We had to get a rig built for them. And once that, it just basically means all the animations need to be changed. You can't share things between them. So anytime you change the rig, it makes the game a lot harder, or it takes longer to build it.
So you can't just enlarge like a giant like biped skeleton or something?
You can, as long as the proportions are the same. Yeah. Anyone over here for? Let's go to you first.
You play For Honor.
I do not play For Honor. I was interested in it until I heard the server issues. Yeah, lag is always the most frustrating thing as a player.
I like falling off a cliff for no reason.
Back to the movie.
Knights, most likely, with the assassin.
The computer science class is asking to ask you, do you guys use flowcharts in the professional setting?
Oh, you're talking. Are you talking about like?
Mapping out the steps and like essentially making like a visual aid to your code. That question is yes.
The answer to that question is yes, with tons of asterisks after it, and I have to run across the room. So in early development, yes. Before the game is built, we will build. We'll have a flowchart and of like how everything's going to build, the interactions and the variables we'll need to be able to get the game to work. Once the game is built, that flowchart can go pretty much anywhere, and we don't know, because as we're adding things, it's really hard to update a single document as things are changing. So it's a good starting base because it lets us know, do we need to build a class system? Are we doing messaging systems at all? How the animation system is going to talk to the rest of the game. It's good to get that down. But once all that's built, you're kind of just building stuff on top of it. So as long as you're generally following what the game is is built around, you're usually okay at that point. Yeah.
Yes.
Feel free.
Since actually we do have Mr. Awad out there.
Yes.
How long does it actually take?
Oh, that's Shigeru Minamoto.
Oh, I missed.
That's not Iwata. Come on, he made Mario. He's got Mario in his hand, man.
I mix a lot of them up.
It's all good. Do you even know do you know the guy at the end?
I do not. I know Scott Coughlin and Notch, but I don't know the three others.
That'd be Peter Molyneux. It actually just listed underneath there, but I don't think you guys can read. That's John Carmack and then Kenji Inafune. I don't know if I'm saying that right. So that's Mega Man's creator.
Oh.
Or Mega Man's artist. Yeah.
Who do each of those guys create?
So Shigeru Minamoto's most of the Nintendo titles, Mario and a few others. Peter Molyneux is the guy who always overpromises, so that's Fable, Black and White, a few other things. It's just kind of what he's known for. He's great at marketing his games. Notch is Minecraft. John Carmack, I almost said Peter, I don't know why. He's not actually a designer, he's one of the few people who just specifically stays in his field, but he's one of the guys who originally made Doom. Scott Coughlin is Five Nights at Freddy's. and I said Kenji Inafune, if I say it right, is Mega Man.
So I was actually gonna ask I remember there was that one like Mario tech demo for like the GameCube. Remember like the one that like showed all the physics and like.
Yeah.
How long does it take to make like a tech demo like that?
It depends. It's more about what you're trying to show off. If you're trying to push the hardware to its limit, then it's more of like what are you trying to do to get there. So if it's graphics, it's like you need some type of graphic system. If you're trying to animate, you need that. So it's kind of a mini game, and usually they'll pull from assets they already have to make the development of it faster.
So it's like when you have all your like models and stuff together, or like the early ones, and trying to put it into like a small little like world.
Yeah, you're trying to push the system to its limits, so it's something that can stress the game or stress the system, but you have to spend some time on it. Usually a couple months.
As an alphas or anything?
No, it's more like a month or two. Is usually how long it takes to build it, I believe. It depends on what they're trying to push. If it's actually testing the hardware, like for the player, they're going to spend a lot longer on that. You had a question?
Is Super Mario Odyssey a simple game to play?
It is a simple game to play. It is hard to master. I don't know if you guys have.
Enemies?
Are you like how long does it take to program a new enemy, or just are they?
I don't know new enemies like chinchos and.
There are tons of new enemies in the game.
Bifrost.
I don't know if Bifrost is in the game.
Do you know Burbo?
Is that the guy with the samurai helmet on? Oh, Birdo.
With porcupines.
I think so. I think they're in.
And what about chinchos? It's like a skeleton mummies.
I think they're in. Yeah, they have like wrappings on them, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they're in there.
No Goombas.
There's Goombas. They have like.
Goombas have hats.
Yeah, there's two different types of Goombas, like a gold small Goomba and a large Goomba. Yeah.
Can you talk about your college curriculum and like your degrees and that kind of stuff?
Sure. So I have a bachelor's in computer science and a master's in game production. So in my bachelor's, I took a few of the first courses I took was a writing class, and then mostly mathematics. So I went through, like I said, linear algebra, physics, calculus, as well. And then for programming, I had several classes for. I had several classes for C++ and C#, and then we went more in depth into networking, graphics for OpenGL or DirectX, level development, Maya tools, and assembly code, which no one should ever have to do. Please don't make me do that again. If you're working in C, so there's different levels of coding. There's high-level programmers, which are things like C++, C#, where they're just above assembly code, which is the lowest level. And then above that is scripting, which is Python, HTML, Lua, stuff like that. Whatever you're building in scripts is usually a file read by C# or C++, and whatever is running in C++ is compiled into assembly code, and it's a mess. Don't look at it; it'll drive you insane. Let's go with you real quick. Yeah.
Is New Super Mario Bros. Wii a hard game to play?
I have not played it yet, so unfortunately, I cannot speak to that one.
Wii is fun. It's my favorite Mario platformer because of the deaths.
Oh yeah. Sure.
So I was actually going to ask, since you have the Sims 4 trailer up on your computer and also Steam, were you going to show us something else also? Or?
No, we were looking at videos I was potentially going to look at. This was more just going through the trailers and stuff. I don't have anything new to show, unless you guys wanted to see something. And then Steam is probably up there because someone messaged me without me noticing.
I'll just be your boss. How many games do you have in your library?
Over 200. I kind of play most games for about 2 to 3 hours to get a feel for them, and then depending on what's going on at work, we tend to discuss like a new game a week. So we'll break down something like Undertale and say what's good about it, what's bad about it, is it overhyped, is it not overhyped, things like that. It just helps, like, yeah, as a game designer, it helps to play a lot of variety of games, because the more mechanics you know and the more things you've experienced, the more tools you have to pull from to make your own stuff.
Can Steam run on my toaster, or do I need to plug the toaster oven into the plug? Like, run like Mountain Blade, the original game, on the highest graphical. I'm talking like 5. Can my toaster oven run any Sims game?
It depends on if your toaster has an iOS installed on it or not.
I mean, it makes bread.
So probably not. Maybe you could play I Am Bread, but that's about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, there's 2 questions.
Sure.
One is, you personally, what would you consider your favorite game to be? And then the other thing followed up with that is, playing that, has it ever made you want to try to get into a different company? Like, I feel like somebody who as in a dying company, like something that's going under soon, like, and then people see it as playing a game, like seeing like maybe like Blizzard's work ethic and like things that they do, has that ever made you think maybe I could go work for them at some point?
So I actually have been in the situation where a company is going under. And I will say that playing some games, yes, I feel like, it could be kind of cool, like go work on that. And usually it's more about opportunity, or if you have the actual skill set to do it. I've applied to Blizzard a couple times, and I've gotten responses back of, hey, we want you next time. It's like, all right, next time. What was the other question? Oh, what's my favorite game? Oh boy. So just hours played, I have to go with Smash Brothers, because I put about 30,000 hours into that series. And that's not me exaggerating, that's the number that my Wii says I've played. Also, it's probably one of the few games I've played in tournaments with. So I've played probably a lot more than that. For like actual narrative game that I would enjoy, Chrono Trigger is one I have to go with. It's very simple, but it's a well done storyline for time travel. Because most time travel stories get convoluted really quick. Yeah.
Is Super Mario 3D a good game is good on the go?
Oh, so the Go version of it?
Super Mario 3D, like for the 3DS. Have you played it before?
I have not, though. I only played a couple of the flagship titles for Mario.
My favorite is Super Mario Odyssey.
Oh, no, yeah, that's really good. They did a good job on this time.
I like the deaths.
Oh.
I like just the different versions of school bus. They have pirate hats.
Oh, okay.
And chef hats.
Cool. Sure.
Walk us through the day in the life of a game designer. When you wake up in the morning and go to your work, what is your culture like? What do you do during your day?
So usually when I first get to work, it's spending an hour downloading tool updates. So it's more about like talking to other people, getting some work done if I can, but usually waiting for things to be built. Whenever we're building a game, assets are constantly being updated, so you have to re-download whatever you're working on. And that can break. And when the tools break, you can't do anything. So then it becomes trying to track down things or getting questions answered for work later on. Usually I'll start with that in the morning. If there's issues from the previous day, I'll get those resolved with either the modeler, the animator, or the engineer I'm working with to try to get myself unblocked later on. Then I'll actually start implementation, which is going through data, writing scripts, doing data entry, hoping the tool doesn't break. And then probably, like, it used to be like tons of meetings during the day. Now we only have a couple. We try to like pare that down a little bit so people have more time to focus on what they're doing.
I have another question too. So you said your background is more in tech, but you probably work with a lot of artists in your profession. Like, what are some attributes, like, if say you have an artist out here who's thinking, I might want to get into game design, what are things that in that the design or tech relationship that you're looking for out of a person that communicates with you well, or what their skill set is, or like what makes a really great designer that you work with?
So I would say what really helps out is having knowledge in what the other person does.
Okay.
the programmer or the artist may not need as much understanding about what a designer does for the most part, but it's still helpful for them. Well, as a game designer, you kind of need to know everything they're doing. Because if you can speak their language, you can say, all right, here's the issues we're having, here's what we need from you, and you understand how long that might take to build. If you don't understand, you may have an issue where you ask, hey, we need, like for The Sims, let's say we want to make cats in the game, like in base game. Well, you're not understanding that might, if you don't understand how it works, like I was talking about with the rigs, you understand that's an entirely new rig.
And what is a rig?
Rig is the skeleton that models run on. That means you need a new rig for the model. You need models, and you probably need tons of them because you want to have, and especially with The Sims, you want to have tons of content. You also need animations because they won't be compatible with anything that already exists. So knowing what you're asking about, how much that might cost, is great. It also helps with the thing I talked about before, which is scope. You can, as a designer, knowing what you can put in with the time frame you have is awesome. Because if you can just say, all right, these are the things I really need, but we can cut these like 4 or 5 things if we don't have the time for it, is great because it helps people have a conversation of, hey, we can't get this in, but we can try for this, we have time for that. So it really helps knowing like what the other person's doing a lot. Sure, in the back in blue.
One of the different variations of piranha plants in Mario games.
I think there's only 2. It's the fire plant, the one that doesn't shoot anything, and then the poison ones, but that's all I know of, unfortunately.
The inky, the red piranha plant is trying to eat you.
Yes, I forgot about those. I haven't actually played enough of the Mario games recently to know all the enemies in them, unfortunately. The hat in the back. Yeah, you.
Back to his question on re-education,
Yeah.
because we were chatting a little bit. Can you explain to them what wholesale expectations were before you got there, and what their academic thing that you had to do every month, and how some students didn't make it?
Okay, so I will say that I went to a very cutthroat school. I started with a class of 66, and out of the original people in my class, I only graduated with 16 of them. My class was only 23 when I actually graduated. So that was the drop-off rate was about 66%. The reason for that was it was a full-time job. Classes were every day of the week, and you were in school for 8 hours. And you could have a schedule of 5 p.m. to 1 a.m., and the next day be at school from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. But it was a 2-year degree versus a 4-year degree. So it was very accelerated. I have a new class every month. If you fail, you were allowed to fail classes, but it kind of pulls you out of the environment you were in and threw you into a new one. So you'd fail a class, and now you have an entirely new group of people to work with in the next class. So it was really strict and like, you got to get your work done, you got to make sure you know everything. I had classes where my exam took 3.5 hours to finish, and then a class that took me 10 minutes. So it really was like, you could be really good at something and do really well, or you have the next class, you just like, nope, this is like outside of my league, I need another month to learn it. There are other alternatives. A lot of colleges are now starting up game design degrees, as well as game programming and game art. Another good school that I know of is DeVry. They're a more traditional 4-year college, and they have a more in-depth degree for the game design itself. Sure.
How would the repeal of net neutrality by the most of America affect the networking?
So it won't affect networking directly because what the removal of net neutrality does is it says it removes the protections that an ISP can't throttle a users or the data coming through their network. What that's going to do though is that they can start doing that. It's going to make sure that companies like EA, Ubisoft, and Activision have to pay money to the ISPs to make them not get throttled, so that your game experience is not everyone at 100 ping all the time.
I'm at 300 ping all the time anyway.
Dude, how you play games, man?
5 frames a second, good for me.
Oh, jeez. Oh, I could not play in that, dude. I'd just drive myself nuts.
I was born in the 10 frame per second era.
Oh, yeah.
You talked about your cram hours when you first started off, but now, like, currently, what are your hours look like?
So the company, so EA has a different philosophy on crunch. They don't like it. They try to do different types of things where instead of crunching, what they'll do is they'll remove meetings from the day. So it's kind of like removing a class from the day. It's basically just everyone's heads down working for the 8 hours, and there's a cut down on people checking Facebook or looking at YouTube videos. It's pretty much everyone on the same page of just work and work responsibly, rather than being a little bit more laid back. And they only tend to do that near the end of deadlines when they have to get something done within some period of time. There are still companies that will spend like the 50, 60, 80 hours a week trying to get things done on time, but that actually causes more issues. And that's what the industry is kind of just figuring out. So by the time you guys are out of college, it'll most likely be a thing of the past.
So, but like you personally, like,
Yeah.
do you take days off? Like how many hours a day do you work?
So I work 40 hours a week. I'll usually work a little bit more if something I'm working on is a little bit behind and I feel like I can just catch that up myself. Or if I'm trying to help somebody else out and it goes over my day, I'll still stay at work until I know that they're finished with their stuff. That way they're not waiting on me to the next day and I'm blocking them. Yep.
How long does Valve's company even function correctly without, the standard, I know they run, completely.
So the way they work is a little weird, but it works for them because of the people they hire. So whenever someone gets hired at Valve, they're not given a specific job. They have their title, they know what they're supposed to do, like they're an artist, they're a programmer, or they're a designer. And they kind of just find the thing at the company they're interested in and wheel their desk over that pod. And then they start working on those with those people, like figuring out what they can help with, what they can start developing for. It works for them because that's the culture they've built, and the people they hire like that autonomy where they can just choose and they can switch between projects. Like, I don't like this, how this is going, or this seems like it's failing. I'm going to go jump on this idea that seems to be working out pretty well. It's more of like an honors code system. You know you're going to be working, so it's like everyone else is going to be working hard. So if you're not working hard, people are going to notice. It's kind of how they get through.
And follow-up question: was there ever Half-Life 3, or did they just work that slow?
Yeah, it's on my picture. I kind of Half-Life 3 right now. I don't know.
Half-Life 3.
Nah, I don't work at Valve. I can't say anything about that. We don't know. Whatever. If they decide to make it, it'll have to be at a time when they think that they won't get backlash if something goes wrong.
Probably too much hype at this point. They're probably.
Yeah, I mean the biggest problem with a lot of games, as they continue making more of them, or they take too long to make one, is hype gets built, or a community really anticipates something, and then the expectation is so high they're not sure if they can deliver on it.
And then they get duped in them forever.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
We don't want that.
Not another one. No.
When you were going through from college to where you are now, it's been about 7 years. What were some of the steps you took to get to your position now? Things you learned along the way.
So, let's see. So the first position I took, I was working for the school I graduated from for about a year, helping out students. I was a lab tech, and basically it gave me enough time where I could work on my own things, as well as kind of reach out to my friends who were in the industry and talk to them, see what's going on, and waiting for stuff to open up. I basically networked into my first job, which was a QA on, actually I have a slide for that, might as well go to it. I was QA on Ravenwood Fair. So these are all the games I've worked on. Some of them are good, some of them are eh. So I was QA on Ravenwood Fair. And then I started working on the other titles they had. However, the company kind of went under because they lost controlling interest. And basically what that is somebody else owns more of your company and they can make a decision for you. So once that happened, I switched over to TinyCo. And TinyCo was more of like, I need to get something before I don't have a job. And when I took that, it started off great, but I noticed there was a lot of issues. And what I would have regretted is when I noticed those, I would have started looking sooner. Because I just basically left that company because they were pulling some shady stuff, and I was like, nope, don't want to get involved with this. So then I found the EA Maxis job, and how I got that was, like I said, I got through PopCap, applied to them. I didn't. Their position closed, and then Maxis called, and But that was still for a QA position. So even though I've been designing for a while, I still had to go backwards a little bit. So I took that, and it turned into the thing I showed before, which is business intelligence. And I turned that job into 30 minutes a day, 1 hour on Friday. So I just basically automated the entire thing. And doing that gave me enough time to get design work on The Sims, and I transferred it to working as a technical designer.
So you have like 5 minutes left.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure.
In 10 years, if Maxis doesn't, well, for you, hopefully, but if Maxis, like, in 10 years, where do you see yourself? Do you see yourself still at Maxis? Do you see yourself moving somewhere else, out of the industry?
In 10 years, I don't know. The industry moves really, really quickly. So it could be that I find something interesting to work on at another company. Maybe I'm making my own games, or I might have advanced far enough in Maxis that I kind of want to stay there. So not 100% sure. One of my dreams is to release my own game. So I do have a couple ideas that I'm working on that I'm trying to see what I can do with. And at some point, maybe one of those will come out, or I'll release it through EA, which means that I'm still working for them, but I'm working on another label. Anything else? We got a couple more minutes. Sure.
What would your current self give your past self for advice?
When I was in high school, it would have been probably making my own games. Actually spending time outside of school instead of like working on something and trying to get it out there for people to see. It really helps when people have some idea of what you can work on or what you can do just by yourself. Whether it's trying to find, like you can find your own artist online or like networking with people. At the time in high school, the internet was a kind of a new thing, so there was very few websites that were offering it outside of Newgrounds, and I didn't really have the money to go buy Flash, so I didn't work on anything myself. I made basically board games in my house and shared them with me and my friends, and that was it. Sure. Probably last question. I'm going to make sure. We still got a couple minutes, so.
Would you hate me if I told you, to this day, I never knew there was a shield button in Smash Bros. And none of my family members ever knew either.
What is wrong with you?
And I was that Bowser who kept butt slamming everybody.
No, butt slam's awesome. Butt slam's amazing. What are you talking
My
about?
brother was the Pikachu who kept doing the Pika. You know, like Pika.
Oh, yeah, that's one way to counter it.
And that's how me and my brother hated each other for our entire life.
I could give you a couple ways to counter that. Just run up to him and grab him with Bowser.
Oh, trust me, I already do. Ground, go off the edge.
Yeah, pretty much. Anything else? Or you? Cool. All right. Well, thanks for having me, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a good one.